dirt has prevailed. I have dishonored my ancestors.
The Simpsons video game from 2007, yes. I remember this game a while back, and it has a lot of history behind it. I mean, this game ended up causing me to go down on a whole rabbit hole due to the fact that this game has so many other ports and has been released on so many consoles that it causes its own rabbit hole for some reason. I mean, and the game's not bad either. Now, yes, I grew up with the PS2 version. Yeah, fun fact, I remember this game was given to me as a Christmas present. It was around Christmas. I was around 8 at the time. And around the time the Simpsons movie came out, and the Simpsons movie was such a big deal, so I guess they decided there had to be a video game to go along with it. So I ended up getting this game, and at the time, I only had a PS2. No joke, I stuck with the PS2 for years after its launch. Like, I literally bought every single SmackDown vs. Raw game all the way up to 2009 on the PS2 until finally I discovered there was other consoles. I didn't even know this was on all gen consoles. I found this out later. Years later, I found out this was a thing on all consoles. I literally thought it was just another PS2 game to add to my collection. But then again, you're talking to the same person that thought the PS2 was the only new gen console for years until 2010. But enough about me, let's get back to the focus of the topic. So yes, this game ended up coming out on PS2, the next gen consoles at the time, 360 and PS3, and it also came out on Wii and the DS. And boy, there's a whole rabbit hole you can look at how different these versions are. If you want a quick rundown, sure, let's do a quick rundown. The difference between the PS2 and the next gen versions are that it's not that big of a difference. They actually play really close to each other, and you'll literally have the same experience and the same story no matter what version you play. But the only differences are, one, you're allowed to skip cutscenes in the PS2 version, when in the next gen version you're not allowed to, which I don't know why that's a thing, but sure, maybe there's some development reason that I'm not aware of. Two, in the PS2 version of the game, your hub world you can run around and explore is just the Simpsons house. You're able to run around the Simpsons house as a hub world to pick levels and decide where to go next. When in the next gen version, the entire town of Springfield is your mini hub world that you can explore and run around to pick levels. Which also to me is also not that big of a deal either. I mean, everybody, let's be honest. If you want an open world Springfield to explore, just play the Simpsons Hit and Run. I think we can all agree that if you're here for that, then anybody, well, I mean, I guess people already would rather play Simpsons Hit and Run than the Simpsons game. That's a whole nother debate, but you know what I'm trying to say? And the final difference between the versions is, for some reason, the levels are structured differently. From what I've seen, majority of the next gen version of this game has a lot of levels more quicker paced or cut down, or they have them more action filled and have much more fighting in the next gen version than the PS2 version. It is true the PS2 version seems to feel longer than the next gen version, only due to the fact that the PS2 version seems to really love to be puzzle based. There are many levels where it's a puzzle that you gotta look around and figure out. When in the 360 game, it's mostly just an action-packed adventure where you're just fighting through hordes and just making your way through a platforming experience. The PS2 version seems to have more of a puzzle lean, when the next gen version seems to have more of an action focus, let's just get this over with lean, which I found interesting. The best example of this will always be the level Adventure Quest, or whatever it was called, where it was basically a parody of Gauntlet and Legend of Zelda and Lord of the Rings, which I fucking love Gauntlet. Oh, Warner Brothers. Can you stop creating outright cancer and please fucking give me another Gauntlet game? You own the entire Midway license of all the games they made back then. You have Gauntlet. Can you please stop bending Mortal Kombat over and giving it a fucking and bring back the Midway license? please, instead of whatever the fuck you're doing with DC, please give me another Gauntlet game. Either another Gauntlet game, or one of the other arcade classics you guys own. Hell, fuck it, at this point, NetherRealm. Let's make Primal Rage 3 at this point. And for the Wii and DS port, the Wii port seems to be very close with the PS2 version. The only difference is motion controls, which no one likes to do unless they're in their bed with a nice hot video playing, or motion blur for some reason. There seems to be this weird effect in the Wii version where it seems to blur and just mess with the eyes, and I do not get what happened with this version. I mean, you might as well should have just tossed it onto the GameCube at that point. And, I mean, the DS version I don't need to explain. I mean, the DS version, due to its technology, is just a simplified side-scroller, which isn't bad, but I mean, I don't think I need to explain why that's that version. Although, I won't lie, I fucking love the covers. Each and every Simpsons game had this cool idea where, depending on what version you got, had its own uniquely made cover, which I really love. It gave me this feeling of, oh, whoa, that is the PS2 version of the Simpsons game. That is the DS version of the Simpsons game. That is the next-gen console. That is a shitty Mortal Kombat game. You know what I mean? It created all sorts of great ideas where it made me go, like, I love that you're trying to really have fun with this idea. And when you play the game itself, yeah, it gets weirder. They have this cool thing in the game. It's already a basic platformer. I'll agree to that. It's a basic, fun, beat-em-up platformer. But like I said, the formula is so simple that it ends up being very fun. I remember when I got this game years ago, I would always go through the same thing. I'd make it to the second level at the museum with Homer and Bart, and then my dumbass kid brain would not be able to comprehend that all you had to do was climb a fucking pipe. Literally, I spent hours just trying to jump over this thing, not knowing that you had the power to climb pipes in this game. And when I found that out and finally beat the game recently, well, let's just say I had a culinary. But what made me really want to talk about this game and fully go through it is, well, yes, like I said previously, one, I finally beat this game for the first time ever now. I mean, I guess I kind of just left it alone and didn't think much of it and just kept playing Simpsons Hit and Run. But then, as I was playing through it, it's such a weird game. And by that I mean in its story. The story is beautifully well done. I love the story of the game. But then the game turns into this weird drug trip where the entire point of this game is to make fun of video games in general. The entire story of this game is about mocking everything with video games. There's a level referencing the old Simpsons games, there's a level referencing the old NES games, and how this game, which I guess they ended up predicting it, where this game is just going to dry out and become some old game nobody gives a shit about years later, just like how the NES games did. The lifespan of a video game, what it means, a scene where you fight Matt Groening his fucking self, where he just throws Futurama at you. And trust me, he's already thrown Futurama at me a fucking enough. Why? Stop shitting on it. I'm fucking serious, I'm sick of this shit. Which ends up boiling into this whole fucking battle about merchandising. Are the Sims even real to begin with? What truly makes a video game? Are they just shits that EA takes in the dumpster every day? Are they just things that nobody gives a fuck about? Are they just a bunch of people passionate about something, or is it just made for marketing? Please, does a bear nut in the woods? And with that in mind, then later on, the game ends up turning into a question about life itself. Then the game ends where you have to go talk to God himself just to end up getting the answer to life, which is, by the way, all of life is a video game. You're all just a video game that I made because fuck you. And then Ralph ends up being the true higher being that's watching all of us and actually controls all of us. And then he gets scared seeing us. And then there you go, Sims is the game. So with all that said, I guess what I'm trying to say is I was very impressed with this game. I'm not gonna lie, like, it was a game that, due to my own stupidity, I was never able to beat growing up. But then, after I watched videos covering it, and I saw all these like, oh, different versions, and which version do you have, and deep dive, and speed runs on it, and everything, I got so peaked, and I went, you know what, I like The Simpsons, this could be entertaining, let's go. And I got way more than I thought I was gonna get. It genuinely is a really well done game. It's a really fun platforming beat 'em up game with puzzle elements that also has a really funny, I guess, kind of like a Simpsons movie in the background that you could watch as you beat the game that questions the very fabric of life and video games itself. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a fucking hippie, but oh my god, I hip to that funk. So yeah, that's my thoughts on The Simpsons the game. In my opinion, really overshadowed. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to enjoy it. And yes, if you have the PS2 or PSP version, so what? You're basically playing the same shit. The only one I'll agree where you're playing something different is if you got it on DS. If you got it on DS, I'm sorry. Just go see your parents or something, okay? And with that said, hope you guys enjoyed. This was a much more quicker, simpler video because this was a topic that literally, right now, right when I beat the game, I immediately, I don't know, I just felt like really into talking about it and really going into my own history with this game and everything. So, hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, all that. And I'll see you in the next video, which will either be an episode of Jetpack Retro or another look into my own crumbling life that I wish ended. Either way, it'll be fun.